Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, founder of a revolutionary medical sales training and mentorship program called the Medical Sales Career Builder, and I'm also host of the Medical Sales Podcast. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire world. It doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing and diagnostic lab, you name it, you will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 10% performer within your role, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. And remember, I am a medical sales expert sharing my own opinion about this amazing industry and how it can change your life. Today we have part 2 of another special guest, Jerry Ennett. You guys listened to him the first segment. Fantastic stuff. We continue the conversation. We get deep into intelligent surgical and what it means for physicians, medical sales reps, and the like. So make sure you're paying attention and make sure you're taking your notes. And thank you, as always, for listening to another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. And I really do hope you enjoy this interview. Let's take it to the sales piece. When we talked about everything as far as the reality of what's going on, what patients think, what surgeons think. But what about the sales piece? What sells the navigation system? Why do customers say, you know what, it's a no-brainer for me. I'm going to go with navigation?
Usually it's a surgeon who is convinced of the benefit of technology, but not so convinced they want to spend a bunch of money or add time to the surgery.
So it comes down to the dollar at the end of the day.
The dollar per value is usually I've done this for a long time. The most of the time when a surgeon reaches out, it's like, hey, or sometimes too, especially 7 years ago when I started, there was this preconceived notion of what navigation was, which was like old striker navigation, cumbersome, line of sight issues, cameras never worked, added a lot of time. And then they would see new navigation, whether it's us or our new competitors, and it would be like, oh, this is way quicker than I thought.
Sure.
So I think it's usually a surgeon, it's sometimes would be a surgeon wants it for marketing purposes or wants to keep up with the Joneses. And,
Sure.
I want computer assistance because all my partners are doing it and I want to be better. Most of the time it's, all right, after all this evidence has come out, I do believe navigation can help in certain things, especially kind of cup position or hip spine analysis or leg length, which I'm struggling with. And I just don't want to commit to an implant, or I don't want to spend a bunch of money on a robot because my hospital doesn't have one or whatever it is.
Gotcha. Now your role, do you train the sales force?
I used to a lot. Now I do less ever since. So I'm based in Canada. So I live a couple hours west of Toronto. But for the first 5 to 6 years of my time at IntelliJoint, I was launching all the new accounts throughout the US and leading a team of business development throughout the US. So any new hires, basically I'd fly into St. Louis with my team for 9 months on and off, grow a business. When that business hit a threshold where we could afford someone local, we'd hire a local, train them, and then give them the territory and move on. So that's kind of what we were doing in the different cities. So I have trained a lot for sure, but just not in the last year and a half.
Now, would you say, talking sales, would you say that this product is an easy sell? Or would you say that there needs to be a level of diligent questioning and nuance that your sales reps have to bring to the table for a potential customer to say yes?
I think anytime you're asking a surgeon to change their workflow,
it's not easy
and spend money.
Yeah.
It's not an easy sell.
Sure.
I'm sure like you've had before, you have easy sells. There are easy sales here and there, but it was kind of interesting. What we found with our sales team, especially 4 years ago or so, when we did kind of an analysis and planning stuff, was if we got to a demo, we were 75% successful.
Okay.
Which is crazy high.
Yeah, that's good.
But that just shows in this day and age how hard it is to get to a demo.
Mhm.
So we did a big legwork, big kind of revamp of getting more of those meetings so that we can get more sales. So what I gained from that is we had a sales team that was pretty clinically sound because they could answer those questions in that demo, and we had a product that was slick because as soon as they got their hands on it, it was like, wow, this is
You're like, wow.
this is
Yeah,
nice.
let's do this. Yeah.
What we lacked was kind of the tried and true cold calling, cold prospect, all that sort of stuff, knocking on doors. That was the stuff our team needed to do more of, and we have gotten a lot better since. But yeah, that was kind of it. It felt easy once you got to a demo, but getting the demo was hard.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. How big is your sales team?
So we now have probably about 25 across the US that are W2s.
Nice. Nice.
And then 20 to 25 that are W2s. And then we have a network of 1099s that they might be a Smith and Nephew rep, Zimmer rep,
Yeah.
the P rep, Ortho Development, Medacta United. Probably like around maybe 100 of those that are covering cases every day. They're already in the room for their implants. The United rep's going to get commission on our stuff too because he's there.
Right.
So he's our 1099. Across the room might be a Stryker or a Smith and Nephew user that's selling his implants to the surgeon and using ours and getting commission. So that's kind of how we roll.
Got it.
We don't want to add people to the OR. We don't want to. So if you got an implant rep, we'll pay them commission to open the box.
So in this space, there's just a sales rep. There's no associate. There's no clinical specialist. Sales reps and sales reps. All right.
So there's sales reps and associates. We have associates. We have in the past for a big chunk of my time, we had kind of like we had sales reps in the cities, the major cities across the US, and then we would have associates covering the cases. And their responsibility was growing within the facility that they're covering. And the sales rep was to add facilities. That was kind of the two different responsibilities, which is pretty common.
Yeah.
And what we found was some areas like at HSS or NYU, when they're going to do 1,000 cases, that still works. You got to be there. You got to manage everything. There's 4 ORs going on at the same time with our system. You gotta do it. But in a lot of places, if it's a surgery center, the staff's really good and consistent. We didn't have to be there all the time. So we've really started, pushing that commission piece to that rep that's already in the room. Hey, you just got to open the box, click a button. Right. Surgeon basically uses it themselves. Well, let's sling you $200 a case. Yeah, like this is like, it's hard to say no to that when they're already in the room.
Yeah, you adjust the sales and the demo all in the same blow. So
yeah, so that's now we are more account management based where you're trying to grow. You're not covering too many cases all the time.
Got it. Now, as an engineer, which I love, you have this engineering background and you have the sales piece. You have a fantastic insight. What would you say, maybe 2 or 3 qualities that make a successful rep when it comes to these navigation systems?
So this is something I've gotten better with over the time from hiring mistakes and things like that. Sure. I would say there's a big med device, like it's very different than hiring for certain other things where you really have to have like a clinical acumen or the ability to problem solve, the ability to be like think on your feet under pressure, the ability to kind of visualize in 3-dimensional space, like because we're talking about anatomy and to troubleshoot a system in the middle of a case, you got to be able to know some math. You got to be able to know what a vector is in space and things like that are important. And you can't just be a pure classic cold calling salesperson that doesn't have some of that experience, or at least it has shown me you can learn. Right. So that's the big, if you're an engineer, all I know is you probably don't still know how to do thermodynamics. You just know how to learn. Yeah, because you had 6 exams in 2 weeks and you knew nothing before because you never went to class, and you figure it out in 2 days and you pass the exam. That is literally what engineering is in terms of school. So something in the work history, the project history, the personal history, or just demonstrating in the interview is you know how to solve the problem and you're willing to learn. Because we've had times where this this random rep we hired books a ton of meetings, great at cold calling, all this, but then we can't trust them in the operating room. So then it just takes the sales rep that hired them has to be in the OR with them all the time because they don't know mental math, or they can't do 2/3 of 3, that's literally an example that someone couldn't tell you what 2/3 of 3 was. Yeah, I think there's a component there that you're way more like there's a patient on the table. The surgeon cannot wait for you to crumble under pressure. You have to be able to do that. And that can't always be trained sometimes. I've had times where we've spent 100 cases trying to train someone to be able to get through that. And it just wasn't in their personality to do it.
Okay.
So it's not something that you can always just train. It's like, if you get flustered or things like that, it can be a problem, and you're going to probably get yelled at and kicked out of the operating room. That's not good. But yeah, I think that'd be my best advice is be a problem solver, be a learner. Don't be afraid to say you don't know, because if you say the wrong thing with confidence, that patient's suffering. And it can be really hard to do that to a surgeon that's demanding an answer in that moment.
Right.
You have to be able to say
with confidence.
Exactly. You got to be able to say, hold on, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Let me call my manager. You got to have that ego check.
That wherewithal. So, that brings my next question then. When you're evaluating, when you're hiring, when you're trying to evaluate who gets to join the team, how do you filter for this type of thought process?
I think part of me implicitly looks at their background, like their education, what they do, or what was their last jobs. I think that's the same with everyone. Once you get to that interview stage and you can actually make an impression, what we do tend to do is have a sort of like a role-playing scenario.
Right.
Not necessarily a mock surgery, but I'll give them a Zimmer Biomet technique guide with the implant information, have them study it, and then 20 minutes or the next day or the next interview, whatever, kind of grill them on the whiteboard fast, like see how they can do, if I can convince them something's wrong when it's actually right, and just to see what they do under pressure, if they get flustered, how quick they can think on their feet. But yeah, that's something we've always kind of done.
Got it.
And we kind of strayed from it and then got caught up in some mistakes and went back to it.
Got it. Do you ask them what 2/3 of 3 is?
Sometimes, yeah.
Do you ever get the wrong answers?
Very rarely. But we did hire someone who had that problem. So why I say that is the hip from like the stem to the neck is it's like, let's say a 45-degree angle. And as you change the neck length, the leg length and the offset both increase if you increase the neck length. And a lot of people think, no, this the high offset moves the offset. The neck length just moves the leg length. But it actually, if you go up 3 millimeters, it only moves it about 2. And that's something that in our system, you need to know that, because we're telling you how much you're moving it.
Right.
So if you're going to go from a 0 to a +9, you got to know that's 6 out of 9. And so that was just a funny example. I was like 2/3. I dumbed it down to what's 2/3. Like, you got to figure this out.
I love it. So then would you say that for selling this product, it's well, I guess the better question is, what type of role do most people come from that are the best sellers of this product? Are they all just automatically engineers, or is there much more nuance to it, or there's something else entirely?
So that's actually a good question. So like what I talked about before, we were really good once we got the demo. We were 75% successful at closing. Mm-hmm. That was when we had almost everyone was a biomedical engineer or mechanical. Like it was a small sales team. It was, a team I had was like maybe 4 or 5 guys.
Sure. We
were all biomed eng. We had our clinical trainer was mechanical eng. We had a bunch of people in the US that were all, for the most part, engineers. And that's kind of what I would expect, is we weren't great at getting a cold call to the demo, but once we hit the demo, we could talk shop with the surgeon and nail it.
Yeah.
But since then, we've matured as a company, matured as a sales team, and had, we kind of have both. So if we're in a business development role, we've got more seasoned salespeople that have been in the OR less maybe, or sold Smith and Nephew for 20 years and whatever that is. And they're killing it at getting the meetings. And then a clinical person might be the one killing it, getting through to the cases. And then there's a different skill set in those first 5 cases to land the business for good, and another skill set to keep the business happy as you go. So I think they're both very important. It just, whatever you're good at, lean into it.
So are you saying then that, for one account, you'll have like 2 or 3 different reps working that account, doing different parts of, one got the business, one was there for the first 5 cases, and one is there indefinitely?
So we'll trust whoever it is to do everything. But if there's a situation where, when you talk about surgeons, you'll use the term a whale. If they're doing, 2,000 hips a year,
right,
there might be a scenario where the salesy guy got the lead, and we go, all right, I'll use Leandra as an example. She's a rock star. We're like, hey, Leandra, go in there and help and like crush that. But not that we just don't, that sales guy wants Leandra there too. They want to hit that quota. So it's, I mean, we have people who are great at everything, and everyone's kind of working on what they're not great at. But I think it was that young company startup mistake that we only had engineers really. And then we realized you need to
diversify.
Yeah. Like I got to stop trying. Yeah, exactly.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And I want to let you know our programs cover the entire career of a medical sales professional. From getting into the medical sales industry, to training on how to be a top performer in the medical sales industry, to masterfully navigating your career to executive level leadership. These programs are personalized and customized for your specific career and background, and trained by over 50 experts, including surgeons. Our results speak for ourselves, and we're landing positions for our candidates in less than 120 days in top medical technology companies like Stryker, Medtronic, Merck, Abbott, you name it. Would you run an Ironman race without training and a strategy? You wouldn't. So why are you trying to do the same with a medical sales position? You need training, you need a strategy, and you need to visit evolveyoursuccess.com, fill out the application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and let's get you into the position that you've always dreamed of. For those listening right now, because there's people listening right now, they're like, man, this is cool. I want to work for Jerry. Wherever he is, I want to work for Jerry. What would you advise them, a resource maybe, that you'd advise them to get really familiar with if they were even to think to come to your company and try to get a position?
I would say, when I think about this, I try and think, okay, like I got really lucky. I got my job so I started working on IntelliJoint 3 months before I graduated school.
Wow. Okay.
So they had a job opening early. I applied, I got the job, and then told them I didn't actually have my degree until 3 months, and they were fine with it. They did it. I got really lucky that the experience I had before with medical device and 3D printing and stuff was interesting enough to them and aligned really well with the job. And I have former kind of schoolmates that are working there now. But if I was going back to square one, or if I wanted now a job somewhere else, what I would do is, I think if you're wanting to get into the space, you should be kind of consuming the content of things like this podcast, like Kevin Brown's podcast. Listen, see what the topics of discussion are. Sure. Read up on what you find interesting. Sure. Read sales books like or Fierce Conversations. That book is a good one. Like, do those things that are kind of low hanging fruit. But the big ones would be, I mean, personally, my career definitely took a change when I started posting on LinkedIn.
Look at you, Jerry.
For sure. 100% it did.
All right.
And I'm sure, I know you feel the same.
Yeah, you know it.
And it's to a point where my goal with it was, this is how it started. So I would get in front of a surgeon and be like, oh, this is a slick product. Are you guys new? And I'd be like, no, I've been doing this for 6 years, and the products existed for 10. And it was frustrating. Like, how did you not know we existed? Like, I know it's a crowded space. We're a small company. We're in Canada, but we've done, I don't know, 10,000 cases at HSS. How do you not know who we are? So I started posting on LinkedIn, and then it was, you got some, one post goes viral, you get some reps coming knocking like, hey, I have a surgeon that might be interested. You're like, well, that was easy to hit quota when it came to me. So that's how it started. And then it literally just got off the phone with a guy before this from Texas, and he was talking to a surgeon. They go, what about IntelliJoint? Can you take a look at that for me? And then he goes, IntelliJoint, I've heard that name before. And then he's just liked my workout posts. Wow. And then he just put two and two together. He's like, wait, that guy from Canada works for IntelliJoint. Yeah. And so my thought is, not everyone's going to use navigation. Not everyone's going to use technology. But if you're going to use imageless navigation and you're going to start looking for what it is, you're going to remember that I'm the guy who sells it, even if it's me playing with my dog in the backyard. Like there's a piece to that where if you're thinking about, oh, I actually want to switch into medical device sales, and I know that Sam guy has a podcast about that, you're going to reach out to you. So that's the way I would start posting. I would do it about whatever you're passionate about. Doesn't have to be implants or anything. Like just I post about hunting, and it's gotten me sales. I post about hockey. It's connected with surgeons who play hockey. They end up using us. Love it. The other thing I would do, which I have had this happen before, and it was I ended up hiring the person, is find out through conversations or whatever they're posting on LinkedIn, you can kind of tell, but find out where these people are selling their products, who their target would be, whether it's surgeons doing knees at an ASC or whatever that might be, and then have a business plan created of your targets, your prospects, who they are, whether you have relationships with them or not, what you would do to reach out to them, kind of a 3-month plan through your probation period of this is what I would do while I'm doing training. It was like they applied with that. I'm like, I had dinner with these 2 surgeons. I'm getting ghosted by these 10. Like this guy knows what I'm doing. It blew my socks off. I was like the one guy, I actually used to sell to this surgeon. He could be a good target. I've been trying to hit that surgeon up for weeks. Wow. So he nailed it. Even if you miss, it still shows a lot of initiative, but this guy knew I was launching in Texas and Dallas, Fort Worth, knew the people we were trying to connect with, and nailed it. So that's, if you really want a job, like that's a show you can do it, show you can plan out a territory and things like that.
That was beautiful, Jerry. It's funny. We have a whole program for LinkedIn social selling for medtech entrepreneurs, and it works because you couldn't be more correct. This platform, LinkedIn, it's fantastic. And it's funny because it's fantastic for the medical space. Like it's fantastic for everything medical sales. So you nailed it with that. We're going to bring this to a close, but I want to capture a few things before we do. So, you have this fantastic photo with this Gerber baby in your lap. Talk to us, man. How do you make all this work? What's your routine? Do you have family? Well, of course you do. Tell us a little bit about the family, a little bit about your routine, and how you make this all work for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So that's my boy. He's now 3. It's kind of funny that he's younger in that photo than my youngest is now, which is kind of funny. Wow. I can't change the photo. But yeah, so I have 2 boys, 3 and 1.
Okay.
And then I have a wife. We live out here. We lived in Stratford, Ontario, which for people who don't know where that is, where Justin Bieber grew up. He was a friend of mine. So that's usually our claim to fame. But it's a town of like 35,000, 32,000 people. It's 30 minutes from our headquarters in Waterloo, which is KW's it's like where Google is and stuff. A couple hours west of Toronto. And that's where I grew up. We wanted to kind of get a bigger place. So we moved out into the country. So now 2 years ago, we built a house out in the country.
Nice.
So I'm very much remote. I travel a bit for work. Mm-hmm. It used to be a ton. And then when COVID hit and we had kids, I kind of, changed the path. So it would be managing people more than traveling myself.
Sure.
So it's still a bit of travel, some international travel, but for the most part, it's working from home. Can zip to the office. It's an hour away if I have to. Most of the time, if I'm leaving home for work, it's covering cases in Toronto or Kitchener. So those days I'll leave at 4:30 in the morning.
Okay.
Get to Toronto by 7:30, do a couple cases, drive home. Okay. And then, yeah, the routine, like a typical routine would be get up in the morning, make breakfast for the fam, take the boys, the 3-year-old to daycare, come back, usually work from kind of 9 to noon or 1. When you then work out in the middle of the day. I like to kind of break the day up around lunchtime with a workout, then work out later, or work for the afternoon, pick my kid up around 4:30. Then I like to spend time with them until like 8. Then if I still got work to do, I'll work late. So I'll kind of break it up that way. If there's a day where we're kind of busier, I'll get up early and work, then be with the kids and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been good. My wife, luckily, in Canada, we have a pretty long mat leave. We've got, a year for maternity leave. So she's been,
Wow.
yeah.
Why are we not in Canada? What is going on over there?
Probably some, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it is a good thing. Sure. So hers just wrapped up and now she's doing real estate, which is luckily, again, pretty flexible to allow for stuff. And so, cause our 1-year-old's not at daycare yet. So that's the challenge is he goes to daycare, I think in September. So it is kind of, oh, hold on, can you watch him while I go to an open house? And then I'll just work later that night or whatever. But yeah, no, it's good.
Very cool. Very cool. So how can people get in touch with you, Jared?
I think the easiest way is LinkedIn DMs is usually the easiest. I'm pretty responsive on there. If I'm not, then your sales pitch sucks. But it's a good way to get on there. But yeah, that's kind of it.
Awesome. We got one more thing to do. It's called the lightning round. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. You have less than 10 seconds to answer. Okay. Jerry, are you ready?
All right.
All right. First question. What is the best book you've read in the last 6 months?
Endure by Cam Haynes.
Ooh, I love how quick you were with your response. I will definitely be checking that book out. Next question. What is the best TV show or movie you've seen in the last 6 months?
God, where was it? I just watched the TV show. I need more than 10 seconds here. What's the TV show? My wife loves 1923.
Okay.
Which is part of the Yellowstone series, but there is another, there's a Tom Hardy series out right now too. That's on.
Oh my gosh, Netflix. I know what you're talking about. I've seen it.
What's that called?
Mobland.
Mobland's good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably my go-to right now.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Now we want the restaurant and the location. What is the best meal you've had in the last 6 months?
6 months. Nobu Sushi in San Diego.
Wow. Okay. I've had that. All right. And then last but not least, what is the best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
Best experience. Like it's probably recency bias because this happened last night.
Okay, fair.
But it was one of the cutest, funniest things I've ever. So my son and he was in his little side-by-side gator and we were driving to the park.
Sure.
And he drives by this and he finds there's a little robin's egg on the grass.
Yeah. And
he goes, "Daddy, look, an Easter egg." Picks it up, hugs it. I'm like, "Whoa, buddy, that's a robin's egg." Like he's like, "What?" So I showed him pictures on my phone on Google. Like this is usually in a nest and a bird comes out. Right. And his heart was broken because it didn't have a nest and his mom was missing. So we drove back home. We built it a nest. It was so cute. We had sticks and everything built on the nest.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was so funny. And then I came out in the morning and my dog had eaten it, which that was bad, but it was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
That's wild. Thank you for sharing that. That is awesome, Jerry. Jerry, it has been fantastic getting to know the business, getting to know your product, and of course, getting to know you. Yeah, man, we got to do this again in the future. And thank you for being on the Medical Sales Podcast.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a customized and personalized program that gets you into the medical technology industry as a sales professional, or any type of role for that matter. Become a top performer in your position and masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolvesuccess.com by visiting our site, filling out an application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and allowing us to get you where you need to be. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews on the Medical Sales Podcast.